involves the beds, the Elks beds. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim and Rob, and they've been working on it today, and they know more about it than I do, so.
I'll give a quick spiel, and then Rob and Tim, please jump up, because you guys did all the work. We talked to Steve Reynolds today, approximately 10:30. Our belief was they were applying for outbeds to go along with their advanced healthcare purchase of the Country Manor. They learned that they could not make that application because they don't own the facility. So they asked us if we would do that. You know, the first thing we said was, you know, we don't have the authorization from the committee. They're due tomorrow. So we proceeded to talk to the chairman. We got the work done. And basically what we're asking for, and there's a copy there for everybody to read, is the fact that we would apply for 80 plus 5 health beds, assisted living beds, and I think everybody realizes, you know, there's adult home, the adult home that we have, and the next step up is that assisted living. With that assisted living, you have to supply a little more services, but there's also more reimbursement from the state. So they're looking to find, and one of our big questions, you know, because we don't deal with this every day. I mean, Tim runs the home, but, you know, we're not experts in this. Let's say out of the 30 people there, you know, maybe 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 are still adult home eligible. Absolutely, they're able to stay there, will be allowed to stay there. I think the thing that I want to leave with, and I'll let Rob and Tim jump in, is the fact that this is the application for the outbeds. We still, I know our county attorney is working with their county attorney and waiting for a contract. I'm waiting for answers from Steve on several of the questions that I've received from the legislators, which we all thought were very, very good questions that need to be answered. I believe that we'll see a contract within a week or so, and I believe I could get answers, you know, on our 8, it was like 7, 8, or 9 questions that we had outstanding between when we added everybody up. From the questions that came up that night, that we would get those in about a week also. So here we are. We didn't know what else to do. We thought the best thing for us to do to keep the process moving forward was to bring this to you, Mr. Smith, as a committee, ask for permission for Tim to apply for the outbeds, contingent on, you know, the purchase of the property by Advanced Healthcare. And really, as I said, the 2 experts are Rob and Tim, and, you know, they can give you.
When will the determination be made on the, how soon will the Department of Health make that determination? If we have them or we don't have them?
The RFP, or their opportunity for development, says fall of 2012.
December 20th, it's still
Exactly.
fall of 2012, okay.
That's a good point, then. When you're dealing with New York State, that's a good
It's a
point.
huge point with New York State. You've been there before, you never know, and it'll be on hold for a long time.
You know, with the grants for, you know, the MBR EBC process, the economic development process, were due Monday. Those won't be announced until late fall. So, you know, you're talking about that same kind of time frame, I believe.
Just to be clear, that this is not a contract between us and Advanced Healthcare to purchase. This is just, I mean, I was grilled on that outside, and I just want to make that clear. This is just a,
not a contract.
just a homework that needs to be done to get to a possible sale.
It's not a contract of any kind, it's simply an application for approval of these beds. And we're indicating that it's contingent on Advanced Healthcare closing the deal. So if that deal, for one reason or another, does not move forward, then the application process will be withdrawn. There's no contract of any kind.
Okay, who said that 5 o'clock deadline?
Department of Health.
That it had to be done I mean, there's only one day a year that you can submit these things?
That's the deadline for this opportunity for development.
And the belief was, Gary, that they would be able to do that, but it was learned at a very late time and date. We were scrambling at 10:30 this morning, and I think we got out the notice by 11:15 or so.
But what's the opportunity for development? I mean, is that something that they drew up?
What they're
and they
saying
put
here,
a
I guess, and
timeframe?
again, these guys are better at it than I am. There's out there 6,000 outbeds in New York State.
Mhm.
I think, I've had, a couple of people call me during the day once they saw the notice, and I think Dan and I talked about this a little bit. As I mentioned, adult home, cheapest care, assisted living, skilled nursing, I think what they've done, the Department of Health believe, and again, this is what I believe, the Department of Health believes that there's people in nursing homes that shouldn't be in nursing homes, that should be in assisted living. And as we know, our Medicaid is getting capped, so they're looking for ways to pare down their costs. So what they had decided a while ago was to announce the fact that there would be 6,000 beds available in New York State for people to apply for.
So I guess my question is, was this opportunity for development set a 5 o'clock deadline? Was it
Excuse me.
something they drafted and the deadline they put in their paperwork, or is the health department deadline?
The health department. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with us or advanced healthcare or...
So if you didn't get an application in today, you're stuck for the rest of the year?
Well, we don't know, Gary, because this is different.
Tomorrow, well, tomorrow.
Right, this is different because of the fact that, as I mentioned, they're looking to get out 6,000 assisted living beds in New York State to try to reduce their costs. You talk to some experts, and we're scrambling today. You talk to some experts, and there's possibilities that you may not get 6,000 applications across New York State. You don't know. So if that happened, would they then, Department of Health, would they say, geez, let's go out again? I don't know. I can't answer that question. And my belief is maybe, maybe not.
So I
Tim,
guess,
you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
I guess even if the 6,000 weren't approved by next week, and we gave ourselves more time to not be scrambling and to go through a thoughtful process, we couldn't put in an application next week
No.
pursuant to the health department
Absolutely.
regulation.
As it stands right now, that's correct.
I apologize for not being here when you convened. How does this impact Valley Health and their HEAL grant? And the assisted living beds they were asking for? Did we have any conversation with them since we kind of married up with them on the property up to college? Have we had any conversation with Valley Health about their ability to
I
get?
didn't talk to Valley Health today. I don't know.
So we don't know if they're competing for the same beds that this company is
My
competing for?
understanding, Tim, maybe one other Herkimer County group
I-
was asking for beds
Pulse
also.
Home is asking for
I believe
beds?
so.
And what about Valley Health?
Our belief
That's
is,
my knowledge.
Well, their HEAL grant is for out beds.
well, my point is now, I think we realized that Pulse Home has already done that,
Already done what?
put in an application.
So we're there, and
And then, I'm just trying to letting you know my information, and I would believe that by tomorrow, Lisa probably would have one in too. I'd be shocked, because I think she submitted, Kathy Eisenman submitted a, what do you call that, a CFA for MDREC. So I gotta believe if they did that, they asked for the extension, which we all knew, they did ask for the extension of the HEAL money, that they would also ask for assisted living.
our letter of intent, though, does not call upon us to file for them, it calls upon them to file for them. This letter of intent that they gave us, I believe. It calls for them to
Yeah,
file.
you're making our case, that's what I tried to say earlier, we truly believe that they were gonna,
No, I don't mean Valley Health, I mean the,
advanced health.
Correct.
No, we agreed, we went through that, Helen.
Oh,
And we believed until about 10:30 this morning that they were making the application.
and why aren't they?
Because they don't own the facility.
And so we're asking for out beds under Herkimer County's name,
Absolutely,
not under their name.
correct.
Are
With
they
the-
mentioned in our application?
Absolutely, that it would not go forward unless the sale went forward.
So
Transfer
if
sale.
you've got 6,000 beds that are going to be plotted across the state,
Right.
if they're coming from all corners of the state, and if we know that Folds or Claxton is asking for them, and the possibility is that Valley Health is asking for them, ours is going to be so qualified, because ours is qualified on what? What do we say in our application? Oh,
The
this is
application
it?
is there, it's very,
Yeah.
very brief.
And Tim made this out? Who
Mr.
completed
Malone.
it?
Mr. Malone and I.
And has the proposed purchaser of Country Manor reviewed it? So we don't know if it meets their approval.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron.
Mr. Chairman, if you wish, we put the qualifier in there in several places that this is contingent on going forward with advanced healthcare proposal. That if that does not go through, we would not be proceeding with the L beds. So I don't think there's any commitment at this point, no contractual nature to this whatsoever. We're putting in an application so that we are eligible and will be in the mix to attempt to receive the beds. And what it will do is give the legislature the opportunity, if it wishes, to move forward with this proposal at the appropriate time.
Again, just seeing this, I'm interested, number 7, licensed home service agency, the LICSA, and the child. What is it, can someone tell me what this is saying? Interpret it for me, please.
Yeah, very simply, and again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they do not have a list in Herkimer County, and that if they were granted the beds, they would apply for a list.
Do they have to have a LICSA to apply for the beds?
The way we're using it.
And we're applying, do we have our LICSA? Are we getting rid of our LICSA?
No, we're saying no. What we're saying is that if the project goes forward, the legislature approves it, they accept, we move forward, that they, Advanced Healthcare, will apply for a LICSA.
Is this not taking aspects of the letter of intent? And not, I mean, here I sit, taking a great deal of time to write the questions that I had about the letter of intent, so that I would love to be able to embrace something like this, and I haven't gotten a single answer.
Well, we
to my-
talked
not
about that a few
single.
minutes ago, Helen, that we hope within the week, Mr. Malone's working on the contract, I'm working on the 7, 8, and 9 questions that surfaced that seem to be.
You know, I don't have to
Well,
wait for
my
the
point is,
answers all at once.
But the point is, you either kill it now, or you move it forward, and we still have the same process, or you have to approve the contract.
I
And
wrote
we're
my
hoping-
questions.
And we're looking to get your answer for it.
But we had questions, had given a deadline to get our questions in so we could get answers. That was July 2nd or 3rd. I met that
I think it
deadline.
was the second.
All right, the 2nd, and I got them in on the 2nd, although it wasn't 4 or 5, it was at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Right.
And so today is now the 17th, and I have not gotten a single answer to any aspect of my questions. And I just don't think, I think the information on this process and whatever else you have is being held by a few, and I think that we're all entitled to equal access to the information. When a meeting is called in under 8 hours, and if
We
you've just
explain
found
why-
out, if you just
we
found out.
explain
it's-
how that happened.
I understand, 10:30 this morning, but should we be flying by the seat of our pants on things like this? Why would we just find
Helen,
out?
what we're doing, and I explained that also, we're bringing it forward to the legislature, you're going to kill the project, because if they can't get the LPENs, it's going to put a big dent in what happens. You either approve that, and they go forward and throw their head into the pool, we save a spot, to try to get those 80 beds. And you still have to go through the questions that we asked, and you still have to go through the contract.
The questions that I would have, though, is that the one firm that you're advancing, while there were 3 other firms, I don't know that in review of the information and conversation, once I find out who they all were, that are they being free-footed from the LBETs, or are they too applying for LBETs, because we don't know.
Well, you know 2 of them.
And I know Folds Home.
That's what I said. I said to you, Folds Home, and I said, I believe that Bassett will apply.
Well, they're
It's a private
potentially,
thing.
they're,
Although outside of us as legislators wanting to see all the beds in this county, I think all of us want to see that, but it's in the private end, it's nothing
well,
to do with the county.
well, I think it is, because the state will allow only so many. We know that they control those numbers. And I do think that we should be concerned that the other interested parties, I don't know why they backed out. I don't know, I don't have any idea why they backed out, but we do know that we have a letter of intent that has certain critical elements in it that were supposedly, if this doesn't met, the whole thing's void. Not the least of which is, let's say, the 20-year plan with the IDA. That was one of the ones that was a critical element. So we can jump through these hoops, we can call a meeting in less than 8 hours, we can have the public not know about it, and in the end, this firm, because I don't know who has talked directly with them, can say, you know what, you're not giving it to me 20 years, I'm not interested. And that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have happened. We should have known about it.
We've never done a 20-year, I don't believe it, Lady. Do you remember one, Jim, we've done a 20-year?
I think what I'm trying to
But
say.
that's still,
understand what you're
but
saying,
yeah,
I'm just-
I think that's getting ahead of it. I think we're trying to
Right.
follow
No,
that
but you have a
process.
letter of intent that you're operating off of.
We're trying to get the answers to your questions.
No, wait a minute.
We're trying to, I think that's very important. I think we're trying to get the contract for you.
If those
The contract
questions,
is
I don't want
very-
the contract, I want the answers
I
to
want
my
the
questions.
contract.
Well, that's,
Because I can tell you, Helen, anything. You want to see the contract to see what's in the fine detail.
well,
Because
I
people
mean,
have a good job of
Oh,
reading.
I'm certain that the contract has to include the things that are agreed upon, I would assume, the things that are agreed upon in the letter of intent that then rolls to the contract, and that is refined even further.
Absolutely.
But my point would be, the letter of intent, I understood, needed to be signed before a contract went forward. Is that not true?
Rob, I defer.
No, that is not true.
A letter of intent doesn't need to be signed.
No, it's not true.
So what's the purpose, what is the letter of intent, doesn't have to exist anymore, we don't have to do anything with that?
That'd be up to the legislature what they wanted to do. But a letter of intent is generally done by companies. And so they'll have an indication that a project has potential life to it. And it outlines the general parameters of a deal so that people will have an understanding of what direction they're going in. But a letter of intent is always contingent on a full contract, and they all say the same thing. It's subject to the execution of a full agreement between the parties. And since there were questions about the letter of intent, we're trying to get a contract for you so that you'll have basically a one-stage process that you can measure what's going on, and then each legislator had the opportunity to vote on it.
So the information that we were given, as far as the letter of intent and the absolute prerequisites for it to go forward to a contract, are not on the table anymore? I mean, the only thing I have is the letter of intent that was given to us, and the certain prescriptive things. So are you out negotiating something that deviates from the letter of intent?
No, you have what we have so far, letter of intent. But it hasn't been executed, hasn't been approved.
Oh, I
Didn't even get
understand.
committee approval.
I
So
understand.
we're not operating under any letter of intent. It was a proposal that still is on the table. We suggested that we get a contract, and we haven't got one. When we get one, we'll move forward on that basis.
The last committee meeting we had, I understand, if I were to go back and refresh my memory by listening to it, we were to submit our questions, the letter of intent was going to be acted upon, and that at some point we would review the things and then a contract would come forward. In what form did it come out that we're going to move to a contract and without a letter of intent? Where was that change?
That wasn't my understanding. My understanding was you wanted those critical seven, and again, don't hold me to the number, 7 to 8 to 9 critical questions, which I think most people agree. I think first and foremost, I think in one of your most recent emails is what I want to make sure that the people are taken care of. That they're not thrown out in year 3 or year 4 or year 5 because the cost went up $50 and they can't afford $50. So those
No,
are,
my question though was, when was it determined that we weren't going to proceed with having to first sign off and vote on a letter of intent?
I never had that,
That we were going to?
no.
Oh, I'd have to listen to that
No,
tape. That's what I
these
understood.
are options of the legislature. The committee system and the full legislature can decide how it wishes to proceed. If the legislature, by majority vote, wished to do a letter of intent first, they would have that option. If the legislature decided to go right to a contract, they could do that. So, and just like this process, what this does is keep the options open for this process to move forward. But there would have to be decision at each stage by the appropriate committees and the full legislature before anything can happen.
Gary, do you have a question?
Yeah, speaking of letter of intent, I'm not exactly sure what term we used when a resolution was passed supporting Valley Health Service and their deal with the county. It would seem to me that we had an obligation to let them know about this. And apparently, we didn't ask them how this may affect them. And my understanding, we haven't had a conversation with them despite our support of their project initially.
With the college, you remember?
Well, Valley Health.
With Valley Health, with the college, because just a month ago, we were approving them access to land for them to have an assisted living program.
But
We tied
I
up
think
35
those
acres.
questions was asked to us before, and I think the answer was it doesn't preclude that there be support for that project.
We're competing for beds. That's why we're rushing
They're
this out.
competing for beds, we're not. I mean, it's a private.
Well, we committed
I guess
35
the best way of
acres.
saying it is first come, first serve. I
Well, we
mean,
committed 35
They
acres.
were first come.
Well, if they get to it.
Okay, and another question I have, we talked about the options the legislators had. I've had this uncomfortable feeling that we're not driving this train, this company is. For example, what's happening today. And I mean, obviously this costs us staff time. Is there any application fee that goes along with this?
No.
Ray, I would like to make a motion that we approve the authorization allowing Timmons, the VSS Commissioner, to apply for this.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion?
Does this need to be voted on by the full legislature?
No, just-
Why not? If you're going out under the county train
all it is filing an application.
application for beds.
We're not spending any money or,
Well, we're asking for, what are we doing now?
we're asking for 80 plus 5 beds. And if it gets to a point where we do sell this to the Advanced Health Management, all this is doing is facilitating us to get to that point of.
So did we get a legal opinion from our attorney on that, whether it had to go before the commission or legislature?
Yeah, but in my opinion, that is that committee approval is sufficient for this process.
I would wish we'd had an opportunity to read it and understand it. I mean, if the meeting was scheduled, this could have been faxed to us, and it would have been emailed to us, it would have been a helpful thing to have.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
How did we find out about this, Ray? I just want to understand who told us.
Who voted yes, who voted no? I heard Jimmy yes, Lenny yes, Fred.
I got a question.
Gene, you vote yes?
Yes.
Smitty, I vote yes. And Fred, you're abstaining?
He's got a question.
So he has to vote, I'm
I've
sorry.
got a question.
You can't ask a question.
It says the number of RHCF beds are proposed to, if already licensed as an ACF, clearly indicate whether you are proposing to convert licensed ACF beds to ALP beds, and/or processing to add new ACF or ALP beds. Where does it show what they're doing in here? We're just going for.
What I said, Fred, earlier, my earlier point, and there's a couple big questions, was that they're asking for all 80 beds plus 5 in the future to be assisted living beds. Direct question, does that include you from the 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever, that aren't eligible? No, absolutely not. All that does is they can't get the state reimbursement for this.
Right, so then the people that are classified as adult care
Will still be there
would still be
at a different rate.
I just don't understand.
Health beds are Medicaid eligible beds.
No, I thank you for reinforcing that.
Ray, I know you voted, but this is saying the applicant proposing to operate this must do this, and this, and we're not the ones that are
Well,
proposing.
we're not, if we
We
don't
made it
sell
clear
it,
now.
if we don't sell it,
We withdraw.
we withdraw, we don't take the beds.
Absolutely.
If we don't sell it. All this does is
Doesn't
get
sell
us,
them.
Puts us on the board for those beds.
Again, I apologize, how did we find out, who to let us know that this had to happen now?
As I mentioned, Steve Reynolds at about
I don't know who Steve Reynolds is.
10 or 10:30.
Who is Steve Reynolds?
Steve works for Advanced Healthcare.
And he said to you, we gotta get this, you gotta get this in today?
Absolutely.
Tomorrow.
I'm sorry, you keep saying today.
Tomorrow by 5.
Tomorrow by 5. It's got to be in the hands and Albany by 5.
We'll arrange it for hand
Not
delivery.
postmarked.
Hand delivery.
I wonder how long they knew.
I don't know then.
Or were they
Well,
thinking that we did know?
I know people are going to be shocked here, but I agree with Helen that when we read the letter of intent, the belief from us, our point was that they were going to be applying.
It says it.
No, that's what, that's why we were a little surprised today and it was hectic.
You know what, it doesn't ring well for the company in terms of preparedness. It makes me question even more who this company is and what they're all about. And that's what we're moving forward with. You know, if, I don't know what information you have on them, but you're talking a $335,000 promissory note that disappears in 5 years and it's free, and somebody comes at us in 8 hours and asks for a meeting, asks for.
I still think you're in control,
Who's in control?
the legislature. Still has to have a vote. It still has to have a vote. We just said early in the meeting that you're going to have your questions answered and you're going to have the contract to look at before the vote.
And I
We still
will,
have to have 12 to sell it, correct?
Absolutely.
the idea
So
that
my point is, it's still in the hands of the legislature.
the change that we will no longer have to have a letter of intent, it's not where we were headed, is, I believe, is clearly not what came out of the last committee meeting, and I intend on watching it, because when you recognize that you look at this agreement, and the whole conversation, the qualifiers that they put on them, and that we weren't supposed to negotiate with anyone else after the letter of intent was signed for 45 days. All of those preambles that were in there were never negated during that committee at all. So I don't know where the idea or the research came up that we don't need the letter of intent. It was something that was not essential. Certainly didn't come out of the committee meeting I attended to. It wasn't my perception of what was said at that committee meeting. And I again caution that all 17 legislators should be given equal access to the information. There's no chairman of any one of your committees that should be getting the inside track. We've all been duly elected to represent the constituency of this county, and I think that is critically important. I'm not into sabotaging this. I'm into knowing that we have, and I think I share that with many of you, as much as we don't agree on a lot of things, knowing that we have a suitable place for our elderly to live and not breach the commitment that we've given to them. But this sets up, when you start having, when certain people have the information, it sets up a feeling that it's just not being dealt with fairly. And I think the need to have foiled the information is just another obstruction.
I don't think it is. I think, there's a process involved where leadership gets that information and puts it out to the committee in the proper format. I mean,
What's the proper format?
homework has to be done. You can't just give this out and.
Yeah, you can. You can say, and I'm working on this. Yeah, you can.
I don't think in
You
any
can say, and
other,
I'm working on this.
I don't think in any
And
other,
we're working on a lot of things.
I don't think in
But
any
you've
other
got it's your
institution
responsibility
you'll
to make
find
certain-
two or
Nothing is
three
being said in
people.
here.
Yes, it is,
I think
Jim.
you're
Yes, it is.
Gary,
insinuating.
be careful. I don't think anybody in the state legislature knows anything other than the governor, the speaker.
This feels like three guys in a row
No.
sometimes.
No.
I mean, you say this never happens anyway, it happens all over.
Wow.
Everyone will have their
It should.
answers.
Can I-
And this
No,
government,
I'm just saying the
our
state
county
was.
government is the closest to the people. We could,
No, it's
we
not.
could, it should, well, it is.
The village.
Well, maybe they're extraneous, if
You
they could
ask
trust the
people in
county
Webb how
government.
close they are to the county. they're gonna
My
get-
point would be, we've all been elected. Whether you like our attitude or our process, or whether I like yours is not the issue.
But how, you asked us to get those questions. We're trying like heck to get you those answers. I don't know what else to say.
Jim, what alarmed me was some of those questions weren't answered, and had the answers were there before someone brought up or the letter of intent.
But a letter of intent is different than a
Jim,
contract.
the information that was in the
You're
letter.
looking for the contract.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I'm not. That
the
wasn't-
questions I heard you ask for the other day, to me, were contract issues. A
Well-
letter of intent is, are we interested, are we willing to move forward on something
Who
like this?
is this company, is not a contract term. That you get, here's the letter of intent. Who are they? You're gonna have a
We're gonna get you
promissory
those
note.
answers.
Oh, God, they got this far and we're doing a request under a name of people that we don't even know who they are or what they do. Some of you do know. Many of us don't, and some people don't care.
We mentioned them there, advanced
You-
healthcare.
That doesn't mean a thing
Go
to
to the
me.
state health department.
I've tried to Google who they are. I tried to try and find out the information.
Yes, the
who
state
they are.
health department,
But
they
you know
can
what?
withhold that
You
information.
should be able, if you have been the guys that have been talking to them on the phone, you're able to reach them on the phone and share with them an appraised value that you wouldn't share with us. That you've had that kind of relationship where you can talk to
Facilities
them.
they run you.
How's that?
What other facilities they run? Any idea?
I have to do that.
There.
There's one in Norwich,
Norwich, Rome.
Rome, Bethany Gardens in Rome, they run.
How do we
We
know that?
mentioned that the other night. I
Where?
mentioned it. I mentioned it.
Well,
You may not have heard me, but I mentioned it.
I
They
don't
run
know who you
Bethany
told.
Gardens.
I don't know who you
And I have a
told.
motion to adjourn.
Do we expect that we'll have a full legislative meeting before the 15th of August? Is there a current plan that we should have a full legislative meeting before the 15th of
I have
August
no-
on this?
I can't.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're adjourned.
Money, money,